Well, hello. It's a cloudy morning in the Zipina garden. Miss Bob here again. So, welcome, boys and girls students, backyard gardeners, front yard gardeners, side yard gardeners, whoever is joining me today. But in this lesson, we're going to look at something known as succession planting. How do farmers ensure that they always have crops to feed the nation? We always have our fig and our dashing and our planting and our veggies. How do I ensure that I always have a steady supply of provision, fruits, veggies? Well, I don't really plant fruits, but then how do I ensure that I always have a steady supply of the provisions that I need? Well, this is done through succession planting, and succession planting can be done in 4 ways. The first way we're going to look at is something known as harvest and replant. So say for example, I plant cabbage, I plant broccoli and cauliflower. That's what I did in the last season, the cool weather. As soon as I harvest them, I will replant right away. So whatever is harvested, you replant right away. Sometimes the farmer or the gardener like me may not replant the same type of crop. We may plant something else like lettuce, and that would be crop rotation, but on that very same bed. But you do it right away, and then you ensure that you have succession. You didn't think I was going to sit there all the while and just talk to you, even if I like to talk. Let's go check it out. So on this bed right there, I had popped in some broccoli and cauliflower. I had put the cauliflower at the back and the broccoli at the front. The thing is, I've harvested them, but what I did, as soon as I harvested the cauliflower, I put in new cauliflower. So these are in from since January. I had put them in, and then afterwards when the broccoli came in, I harvested them and I popped in cabbages. So that is the way I practice the method of harvest and replant immediately. All right, but something happened to my cabbages. As you can see, they are no longer there. They have been eaten, so the slugs got to them and ate everything. So we farmers, we do suffer some serious losses. So what I did was I came in, and this time I decided to rotate the bed, and that is also harvest and replant. So what I did, I planted lettuce. I did the lettuce because the lettuce will be ready within 6 weeks. And then now that the cool weather is over and we're into the cowing season, the hot weather, what is going to happen is this won't do so well, and I would be able to harvest the lettuce in time before it gets too hot for them. But the slugs came and ate everything again. So what do? I do have cabbages, and unfortunately I'm going to pop them in again in here to ensure that I have a steady supply of cabbages despite cowing season coming, and they may not do as well as they would have done during the cool weather. So in this area I am practicing harvest and replant despite the slugs eating everything. This is the only lettuce that survived right there, this one here. And again, because of space requirements, I could put the lettuce in there, and then it would be ready before this got too big, and it would get a bit of shade. And then here as well, this is the only lettuce that survived, the only cabbage that survived the onslaughts of the slug feasting, and this one as well. So only 2 of them survived the onslaught of the slug pest. But don't worry, I'll deal with them. I'll get to them. Now, the second method of succession planting is what is called intercropping. And what does intercropping mean? Well, basically, as the name sounds, you plant 2 or more crops on the same bed at within a planting season. Now, different crops have different requirements. So, say for example, maturation time. Bush beans and radishes, they take liquor time, they're already ready. So bush beans within 6 weeks, they're already ready to be harvested, and radishes within 28 days, a month's time, you're already ready to harvest your radish. So you could intercrop that with another crop that takes way longer to be harvested. Like say for example, sweet potatoes. Depending on the type of sweet potatoes, that might be 4 to 6 months. Within that time, you would have harvested your bush beans already. Or even say carrots. Within that time, you would have harvested your radishes already. Now, intercropping is beneficial on many levels to we backyard gardeners and farmers. It helps me to maximize the use of my space because again, in that bed and within that season, I can harvest 2 to 3 crops at the same time. And some plants, they thrive really well next to each other. And when you put them next to each other, they do well. And that would be known as something like companion planting. So when you intercrop, the plants benefit from being near each other, whether it is getting rid of bugs or nutritional needs, or being able to harvest several crops on one bed. Let me show you again how I do it. In here I'm growing potatoes, but because the potatoes takes about 4 months to get ready, what I did, I put the bush bin, so by the time the potatoes start running, because that's what they are vines, they are creepers. Don't forget nightshade family. I'm already harvesting bush beans. So by the time the potato takes over this entire area, all the way up there, that's its spot for it to run, I would have harvested a nice crop of bush bean and callaloo. So I'm harvesting the callaloo. I've been harvesting callaloo for 3 weeks now. So I just spread the seeds and oops. So I maximize the use of my garden. Remember, gardening, you need space. So I maximize the use of my space. So here on this bed right there, let me show you. My space is very small. We maximize that garden bed and not halfway. So here I have on this bed, I have beets growing here, and I have tomatoes. I never know the brand that I have, but I love tomatoes, so it's a type of tomatoes. But because of the space requirements for the beets and the tomatoes, I was able to intercrop both of them. The beets, they are root crops, so they would make their food on the ground and wouldn't bother the tomatoes. And they tend to hug the ground, they tend to sprawl on the ground, whereas the tomatoes, they are vines, and what they would do, they will crawl up whatever trellis, in this instance, this one, that I created for them. So next thing is, the beets don't mind the shade at all. So those that are planted pretty close to the beets will actually thrive, they'll actually do well. So you can plant them both in sunlight, full sunlight, and in shade. My cats are fighting. Well, not really my cats. My cats and the adopted cat, they're fighting. So my kingman is in the background encouraging my cat to get rid of the adopted cat. It doesn't want to leave our home at all. So anyway, let's get back to our beets and tomato bed. What was I saying? As I was saying, because of the different space requirements, the tomatoes will grow on the trellis. They are vines. They will not bother the beets. Beets are root crops. They tend to stay low. Beets do not mind the shade. And they will do well both in the shade and in the sunlight. And that way I can intercrop, I can maximize the use of my space, planting tomatoes and planting beets. Another cat we do not own, and she comes over because we feed her. We don't know her name, so we just call her owner's name. And yeah, she's a beautiful cat. Actually, she came from our home. So the tomatoes, as I said, they're happily climbing up the trellis. The beets are happily making food on the ground. But I found that the hard way, that sometimes it may not always work. I have to be careful with my intercropping, the plants that I'm intercropping, because once I planted Somebody's there. So I found out the hard way that it's not just any crop you can intercrop, because different plants have different nutritional requirements. All right, remember NPK, nitrogen, potassium, and phosphorus. Oh, that should be nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium. N for nitrogen, P for phosphorus, and K for potassium. I had planted lettuce in a bed next to, I think that was, I can't remember, but let's just say, for example, lettuce, it's a very light feeder, and cauliflower and broccoli, they are very heavy feeders. And not realizing that very early on, I planted the lettuce, and then afterwards I put the manure. So depending on the manure, it will kill the plant that is a light feeder. So I had to be aware of what I'm putting on the bed. So because beets grow on the ground and they need a lot of potassium for their root development, and then the tomatoes, they are vining plants, they do need root development, so the potassium will do well for them, but they need a lot more phosphorus for them to have a lot of flowers, and then the fruits will be big and sweet and juicy, so they need the phosphorus for that. And then quite naturally they all need nitrogen for them to make leaves. So that I learned the lesson that whatever manure that I'm putting in, it will benefit both types of plants that I have intercropped. Learn the hard way. All right, although plants have other nutritional needs, we have to focus on the major ones, the NPK. It's just like us. It's just like us. We have our nutritional needs, and we have the 7 major nutrients that we need. But let's just say we have carbohydrates and fats, which we need for energy, right? And then we have protein, which we need for building muscle and repairing our tissues. And then we have our vitamins and minerals, which is for our well-being. Lovely skin, perfect eyesight, good teeth. So the plants, they have the same requirements like human beings, and that is how we get the nutrients from them anyway, when they get it from the soil. And she's there desperately trying to be a part of and she's there desperately trying to be a part of the garden. All right, Albert, stop disturbing our video, okay? On this bed, I continue with intercropping, but this time I am also blending it with another method known as same type but different maturation days. So on this bed, I have 2 methods going on, actually 3 methods going on. So I have intercropped radish. So these are radishes. Students, if you don't know what they are, and other backyard gardeners would know what they are. So these are radishes. Oh my, look at that. Oh, this one is so fat. Check it out. Nice. I should be able to harvest this one today. This radish right there. I'm always excited for underground crops. Sometimes I go take a little peek and see just how well they are doing. So back to the lesson. I intercropped radishes and carrots. So these are carrots right there. That's what I intercropped. Thing is, both of them are root crop, and they would most likely compete for space. But the difference is in the maturation time of these crops. The radish will be ready, as I said before, in 28 days, whereas the carrots will be ready after about 3 months. So I have already harvested, like I did here. I already did it already. I harvested the radish, and then that would open up the space for the carrots. That would take a little time to open up and grow. So that is a type of intercropping where I maximize use of my space by planting 2 root crops, one maturing way earlier than the other one, so I'll be able to have a supply of radish, and then later on the carrots will come in. So today I'm going to pop in some more. This one is a nice one right there. See it? It's ready for harvest, definitely. So I'm going to, as soon as I take it out, I'm going to pop it in. So practicing harvest and replant. In here, when I harvested the carrots, there was carrots in here. I popped in some beets sometime, I think last week, but as you can see, they didn't do too well. So I'm going to redo that again today. But like I did with my bush beans and potatoes, and also the Malibu spinach on this bed. I did the same thing on that bed, intercropping. Along the same bed here, I want to ensure that I have a consistent supply of carrots, and that is where we move into a new type of succession planting known as staggered planting, and that is what is usually considered succession planting. So if you notice, you'll see that these carrots here are well developed. You know, you have very nice, big, healthy, I must say, leaves. And here we have smaller ones that definitely need a bit of love. They do need a bit of love, but they're smaller. So what I did is I staggered the planting of those crops. So that means by the time I harvest that set, this set would be getting bigger. I did the same thing here, but then it's very difficult to plant carrots, and they died. So I'm going to have to plant something else there to take up the space. So here I have staggered my planting of my carrots. But with staggered planting, what a farmer or a backyard gardener does is, especially for crops that tend to mature very quickly, is to ensure that, like, let's say every 2 weeks or so, for example, with my bush beans or even my radishes, you put in a new set, so that way you always have a consistent supply with staggered planting. You can do that with any crop, but especially for those that are ready very quickly. Like every week I put in a new set of seedlings to ensure that I always have bush beans, and that's the example here with the carrots. I do it on other beds. I'll show you. When you plant a crop, let's say bush beans, because they'll be ready in about 6 weeks time, it means after 6 weeks you'll be harvesting. Well, I harvest for up to a month before the plant decides I have enough, I have made enough, and then it starts to die off, which is normal and natural. What would happen if I plant after it has died? I'd have to wait another 6 weeks before I can start to harvest. But what succession planting does is, I planted this one in late December. No, not late December. In middle January or thereabout, early January. And then I planted this one at the end of January. So what is happening, I'm harvesting here, and they start flowering. So when this set, they've produced all they can, thank you, Ja, thank you, plants, and they're dying, this set will be here producing. So I have a continual production of and continual harvest of bush beans. What I need to do now, which I'm late at, is to put a new set in the ground, but I had no more space, so I couldn't put a new set in the ground. Actually, I only got a chance to put 3 plants. 3 seeds, I actually just stuck it in somewhere, and these are my succession. But what I'm going to do, because I have harvested so many of my cabbages, I'm going to now put it in, so that means by the time these have started producing beans in the next, probably, feels like I'll be harvesting in 2 weeks time, the others will be nice and tall. So that's what succession planting is. It's basically ensuring that you stagger your sowing at intervals, so that way you do not run out of the food that you want to eat. When one crop is finished, another one starts producing immediately. I do the same for my callaloo, because I prefer the callaloo young before it starts to run. So as I harvest, whenever I have a clear patch of land, I just spread the seeds, and that way I always have a new set coming up. So for the past weeks, I've been harvesting callaloo in this very area, and every time I come back, there's a new set, because I just take the seeds and I just throw them. I just throw the seeds, and in the next 2 weeks or so, I get callaloo to harvest. Or I may not do that. I put the stock back in, so as it grows through propagates through seedlings, it can also propagate like that. So this will also grow. So this cutting, well, I didn't cut it, but it's a cutting. This cutting, if I put it back in the soil, it will actually make a new plant, and that way I have succession. I always have callaloo to eat until I run out of seeds, and then I have to let a few of them grow very long, so it can make seeds. It has to grow very long for it to make seeds. Yeah. So this is the area I just harvested the cabbages. So this spot just opened up. So what I'm going to do is pop in some bush bean seeds in there, and then we know what they do. They return nitrogen to the soil, and cabbages are heavy feeders. So by putting the bush bean in after I have harvested the cabbages, no, it has a lot of poop there, so I need to wear my gloves. So the bush bean will now return the nitrogen that the cabbages sucked up. Oh, I think this is a left and a right. I took 2 left gloves. I don't know the difference between left and right. Okay, so yeah, so that's it. Putting them in right now. And then I put them a little close because they tend to, this bits is really trying its best. It's trying really hard. I put them close because they tend to support each other as much as possible. These are tiny. And I like to put 2 per hole just in. Alright, so we looked at 4 methods of succession planting, but let's just go over the 4th one, which I spoke about when I was showing you the radishes and the carrots. Now this is planting the same types of crop, but they have different maturation days. I do that a lot with my brassicas. So cauliflower, broccoli, cabbages, kale, they all have different, I found out that they all have different maturation days. So say for example, the cauliflower would be ready within 3 months, so whereas the broccoli would be ready about 4 to 5 months. So cauliflower 3 to 4 months, broccoli 4 to 5 months. So when I plant my cauliflower, well, when you have a front yard, backyard, side yard garden in the neighborhood, every last song you get it. So let's just continue. And it continues. Now they're fighting at the feet of my camera woman. You know what I mean? It's like a distraction today, but we try it. We continue it. That is life. Such is life. We move on. As I was saying, the cauliflower would be ready well in advance of the broccoli, so I'll be able to harvest the cauliflower, right? But that's it. I would take them out and put in another one, and that would leave the broccoli with enough space because broccoli likes to open up, and then it would make more florets. So after I have harvested the first head of broccoli, it would make more florets, and then I would harvest until it can no longer give me florets. Another thing is that I put in what's its name? Pak choy in there. Pak choy is another brassica, and pak choy loves the shade as well, so I would put it in between them, and then I'll be able to harvest it within 6 weeks literally of planting. That way, on this one bed, I will be able to harvest 3 crops: cauliflower, sorry, pak choy first, cauliflower, and then broccoli. So same type of crops, but different maturation days. So that is the way backyard gardeners and farmers ensure that they have a consistent supply of the food that they grow to make money or to supply for their family. In my case, for my family, so we can eat what we like to eat, and for the farmers, so they can always bring in the cash to maintain their home and their family. That is done through 4 methods. So we have, the first one is succession. The first of succession planting is plant, harvest, replant right away. So harvest and replant. The second one would be to intercrop, but being careful how you intercrop that as well, and making maximum use of your garden with intercropping. The third way is to stagger the planting of your crops, ensuring that you sow seedlings every 2 weeks or so. And the fourth way is to plant those crops, same family, but they have different maturation days, so that way you can harvest them at different time. So this is our lesson on succession planting, and now we can practice it in our school garden or in your backyard garden, front yard garden, wherever our view is. I am Miss Bob. I'm a student. Nature is my teacher. My garden is my classroom. The earth is my school. See you until next time. Bye. Wait. No. Hey, it's not a bye. It's a lesson after all. What do you think? It's just going to be like that? There's comprehension coming up. Check up the next couple minutes of the video for your comprehension. You can do it your choice. You could answer the questions in Flipgrid, or you could write the answers in Google Classroom. For the other viewers, I hope you enjoyed. Almost bye for now. So you have a choice. You could do that in Flipgrid orally, quite naturally. I'll open the portal, or you could write your answers in Google Classroom. Your choice. All right. Number 1. What are the 4 methods of succession planting? Number 2. In your own words, explain what is succession planting. Number 3. Name 2 crops Miss Fob intercrops. Number 4. Name a root crop she grows. Number 5. Name a brassica she grows. Number 6. Name a vine she grows. Number 7. Why is it important for gardeners to practice succession planting? And number 8. Based on what you learned from this lesson, if you had 1 garden bed, which 2 crops would you plant? And why? Please don't tell me because it's your favorite veggie, please. Don't try that. And I am finally saying goodbye. I am Miss Fob. I'm a student. Nature is my teacher. My garden is my classroom. The earth is my school. See you until next time. Bye.